Hi, today we're going to talk about the 15 basic DISCflex patterns. We're here with Helen Davis. Hi, Helen.
Hi, Derek. How are you today again?
I'm doing great. Today we're going to see how do these 4 factors form the composite of your whole personality. So Helen, could you explain to the viewer how these 4 factors come together for your entire personality?
As you'll notice when you do your DISCflex behavioral report, you'll find out that there's certain elevations that you have. Now, we know that the elevations in each person are like fingerprints. They're very, very unique. However, there are 15 basic DISC patterns that we found that you can actually identify. Now, what's really important about that is you need some basis of knowledge when you're interacting with people. If I have 3 people that I have to go and have a meeting with, and I know what their basic DISC pattern is, I'll know how to interact with each one of those people. Even if I don't know their exact elevations, I will know precisely how I can best impact them. For example, I happen to be a elevated D, elevated I type of personality. My S and my C is very, very low. If I knew that I was going into a meeting with somebody whose steadiness factor is very, very high and their compliance is very, very high, I'll know that I have to change how I react with them for the situation to go in there and have a better meeting, much better interaction, much better meeting.
Because you'll be on the same page.
Yes, I'll know what they expect from me behaviorally and how I can best influence them and impact them and make the meeting go well for both of us.
So even though there can be thousands of different personalities, since we all have our own little human fingerprint, we can basically use these 15 basic DISCflex patterns to kind of generally see what another person is like. And
that's really what you're talking about. It's general patterns of behavior where you'll get somebody who has a high D, and then the other ones are much, much lower. The S and the C and the I are much, much lower. And then you might have somebody like myself, high D, high I, S and C down here, and then you might have somebody just a high S. The D and the I and the C is over here. If you know those things and you're going into a meeting or interacting one-on-one with them and you know my pattern and I know your pattern, we'll know exactly and precisely how to communicate better and build those relationships more solidly. Also, I'll know which terminologies to use with you, things that'll kind of set you off, that'll make you annoyed, and which ones will make you happier and more content, and which ones will motivate you and satisfy you. Also, in my behavior, if I know that I'm going into a meeting with a elevated C and elevated S, I'm going to dial down my I, because that's going to annoy them. I'm going to dial down my D, and I'm going to be more thoughtful and more compliant and actually understand where they're coming from. So I'm going to be dialing down and then dialing up so that our interactions are the same. Now, it's not all about me either. If you're doing this in a team situation and you're doing this for your organization, one would hope that that person would know my pattern too, where I could actually say, you know, I am an elevated D naturally and an elevated I. So knowing that, I would hope that they would do the same thing for me. And that's really the culture that you're trying to promote, is mutual understanding of other people and respectfulness of who they are and how to communicate and interact with them and build those solid relationships.
So when you're looking at these 15 basic DISCflex patterns, what if you don't know what another person is? How can you tell by reading this material?
Yes, you actually can. You know, in the material, as you're learning, we said that you're going to get conscious awareness of other people. As you learn about the D, the I, the S, and the C, and all of the sub-factors that we have, you're going to find that you're going to make some pretty good educated guesses. For example, if you know somebody constantly asks you for more paperwork and the rules and the procedures and the policies, it's a pretty good educated guess that their C is higher than somebody else. Yeah. If somebody's thoughtful and they like to take a little bit more time to mull over decisions, or they ask you about your plans and the planning process and the process that goes along with this, you're probably looking at somebody who's an elevated S. If the person asks you if they want tea or coffee constantly and they like you know, the interaction of finding out about your family or what you like to do socially, you can pretty much make an educated guess that their I is going to be elevated. And if you find that somebody just wants to get to the bottom line, they say, you know, they're flipping through your presentation and they go to the back page immediately, an educated guess is that their D is elevated. So you can actually make some really good guesstimates about what their pattern is. And remember, in normal DISC training, they concentrate on one of the factors.
Yep.
These 15 profiles will stop you from doing that. You have to understand that people aren't only a high D or a high I or a high S.
It can be any combination thereof.
Any combination thereof. So we're really looking at those patterns, and looking at them on a table, you can say, all right, where do I think they are? Yes, they've got a high D, but oh my goodness, they like relationships too. So that would be a higher I, an elevated I type of position. We can actually map out these patterns for a team where you can say, all right, we have a team of 10 people. We can actually put a Post-it note or a star. We have a chart that does that, where you can say, all right, Derek is this, a high D. Helen is an elevated DI. Lindsay, for example, has an elevated S, an elevated C. So we can actually plot people on this chart for a team environment so that we can interact very well together. And you can make those educated guesses.
And so you can see if you're missing any strengths from certain personality patterns.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, what we try and do here at Indaba, and we caution our clients to do this too, is when you're putting a team together, make sure that you're not all those driving Ds, because you're going to get yourself in trouble. Make sure that you don't have only the S's and the C's there, because you're not going to get to the action state. So you need a balance in these patterns, which is really important. And you can plot these things to make sure that you've got that diversity of thought and diversity of action within the behaviors.
So we just talked about the 15 general DISCflex patterns. Do you have anything else to add to the viewers before we leave them today?
What I'd really like to have you understand is those educated guesses are okay. It's okay to guess. This is not an exact science by any stretch of the imagination, but becoming familiar with those 15 patterns, it isn't rocket science either. It's common sense. So once you start getting into this, you'll actually find it extremely interesting. And I personally think that it'll change the way you interact with people, and it'll really change the way you look at people's behaviors and your own behavior too. So again, very important to understand, not an exact science. Educated guesses are fine, and making sure that you're interacting on a personal level and on a business level, using this to make your interactions better is important.
It seems like we all take guesses anyway, so having an educated guess actually might be better for most of us.
That's the goal.
All right, well, thanks a lot, Helen.
Thanks.